Okay, so good evening, everyone, and welcome to Zinester Talk, episode 8. I can't believe we're at number 8 already. Um, but yeah, this is the second to the last Zinester Talk. So there's one more after this for for part of the Sea Lit Circle Writers Festival. And the last one will be held tomorrow, so stay tuned for that as well. But tonight, the talk we have is about the chapbooks of Dan Christine Chan and Billy Almashur. And later on, Vinny will try to hop on later on this evening. So there will be a third Zinester, but he'll be late. So he'll come on later on. So I guess that's it. And I'll leave it now to Dan and Billy to start your conversation. Have fun,
Okay.
guys.
Okay.
All right.
Lily, you want to go first?
Okay. All right then.
Introduction.
Introduction. Well, you've done it yesterday already, right? So yeah. Anyways, first off, thanks to the SLC fam for hosting this platform. Really grateful for this. And it's first time I'm meeting the other writers as well. And so, just an introduction of myself. I'm Billy Almasho, and I'm based in Kuala Lumpur. And I'm actually in terms of what I do is actually I'm more in the creative industry, so I do a lot more on organizing events, such as KL Illustration Fair, and as well as a whole lot of other showcases. And I'm also an educator, so I teach a lot more on like commercial stuff, on like illustration, and so that's one of the things that after doing so many events with people and exhibitions and stuff like that, this pretty much prompted me. Actually, quite a few people asked me, when are you going to do your own illustration? When are you going to do your own piece of work? So I guess pandemic helped a lot, where we're all stuck at home, and it was pretty much dead end when it came to events or running showcases and stuff. So that pretty much prompted me in saying like, okay, maybe this is time where I can start doing my own thing. So I think that's where I really wanted to showcase a lot more on the travels I've done, because one of the things that I love um, doing is basically traveling and exploring places. And so that's why I created this traveler book, which is Luna Lonely Hearts Club, inspired by the Beatles. And then there's a protagonist, and it basically, instead of a typical traveler book, what I did was basically really much more on the realities of traveling alone. Because there's a lot of
Mm.
times when we see on social media, it's a lot more on like, oh, it's so fun, oh, I'm having a great time here. But the actual truth behind it, there's a lot of obstacles in it. So that's how the book came to be. So yeah, that's pretty much my introduction. And over to you, Diane.
Yeah, so my name is Diane Chan. So I'm based in Manila, Philippines.
Okay.
And this is the first public sharing of writing
Mhm.
ever. Yeah, and but I've always loved to write and write short stories, poetry, read a lot of books, and I also have friends who also write fantasy stories and things like that.
Right.
So yeah, but I think I started the poetry collection not really as a collection. It was just something I was writing for myself to help process certain things
Mhm.
in life. But last May I had a bit of time to write more than usual, and I thought, maybe I'll try submitting to the zine market. And Steph actually was shout out to Steph. She was very encouraging. She told me to go for it and not censor myself.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's it for me.
All right. Okay, so cool. So I guess it's both first timers putting out their work on public. So
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's like just as nerve wracking as your on your
it
end as
is.
well.
It is.
So
How was
like
it
having
for you?
it was I think the fact that because that I was in the industry and that a lot of like working with professional artists and seeing the quality that they put out and the kind of work and you kind of set like an expectation on yourself. Like I was like, oh, is this gonna be good enough? Is this gonna people actually gonna buy it? So when I first I actually sold it purely through social media. So I was just like,
Mm.
oh, I'm just gonna sell it to friends and I'm just gonna like try and say like, hey, do you guys probably wanna buy my book or something like that? And I was really shocked in a sense where there was a lot of encouragement from friends, and even as well as from people that I've not interacted with before. And they was like, yeah, we'll totally want to get your book and stuff like that. And one of the things that was really heartwarming was because I did physical copies and I sent it out and like through like
Mm.
personalized sketches like thank you for buying my book, and a lot of them were pretty much receptive and they were giving really encouraging words. They say like, we understand it's your first book and they are digging the story and we want to see book two. I was like, oh, okay, so there's someone that actually appreciates my work. So it was really felt good in that sense. So yes, I'm still procrastinating on book two. And as usual, because life happens when you have like huge or loads of other work. But yeah, I think like in a sense like it's amazing when like the process when you actually produce something for the first time and you're sharing it and all these thoughts. I mean, you can be your most you're like the harshest critic of your own work. And then when you
Yeah.
get the response from other people like, hey, I love the illustrations. Oh, this is, something I can relate to. And because I think you've seen in my zine where there's a lot of all those photographs are actually photographs I took. Those are basically from my trip. So a lot of say, hey, I know this place. And hey, it's like, and it's nice to be able to relate to people, like even though it's like strangers and stuff like that. So I think that's really motivating in that sense, being able to connect with people, even though it was something that was of a personal expression. So that was me on my end. So yeah, and about your zine, so I've I think you got a new fan right here in Kuala Lumpur right now because I absolutely loved there was like a few pieces which I really really loved and I actually reread it like so many times. I was like, oh, this is beautiful. I love fragments. I love sweetness as a gift and befriending my body. So that was just it was beautiful. I was just absolutely loved it. And I was because I'm a visual person and I loved how everything was really simple and profound and it was relatable and so it's like, oh, okay, I can visualize this thing because that person. So it was like, oh, okay, and then I really felt it. So for me, like my I have questions on your end basically. Like first off, like how is it like for you releasing, for the first time in public and as well as, putting out all those expressions, things like what was the process like? Just like how, it was for me, like it was mad. But I mean, how was the process like for you? And then just share out on like how did you feel probably after releasing this thing? Like are we gonna see new works and stuff? So yeah, go ahead.
Oh, oh, I'm gonna
Happy.
start crying. Oh, thank you for thank you for your very kind words. Yeah, actually, the some of the poems, like fragments, I wrote back in 2016, and
Right.
then "Sweetness is a Gift" was just a week, the same week I submitted the zine, and
Okay.
then the "Befriending My Body" as well was the third. It was all in the same week. So basically, what
Okay.
the it's I like to think of the process as a bit of like 10 years in the
It
making.
is.
Um, so the actual writing of the poems were quick for me, I would say. I didn't really edit all that much. So
Okay.
when I was writing it, I was in this mood. You call it like, the mood to
The
write.
vibe.
And but I think at that very moment I was just writing for myself, like what I said earlier, processing everything and trying to make sense of what I was feeling at the time, because there were a lot of mixed emotions, as you would probably sense in
Mhm.
the poems. But yeah, in the note to the reader, or was it reader's note that I put that, or author's notes, I put a list of artists and
Yes.
authors that have inspired me. So those are ones that have been almost 10 years in the making. Because I also used to work in advertising, and so that's a lot of the um yeah, it's a creative industry, and
Mhm.
there's a lot of pressure as well. Being in the industry, you would know, because you still work there.
Totally feel
And
it.
yeah, and it's just a lot of um trying to find words to things I was feeling but could not put into words. And then I found all
Mhm.
those artists and songs and books and everything else. So that was the process for me. But then I think it started in 2019, where I became more aware of how I didn't I wasn't aware of my emotions, or my what I'm feeling, so much
Mhm.
so that whenever something small happens, I would just burst and react and all of that. So I started not started, but I continued my practice of journaling. And
Mhm.
yeah, but I would say the actual process of living through what I was writing in the poems, and also learning the things I was putting into the poems, that took almost 10 years. So it's a lot of yeah, grief, and people dying, losing friends, changing jobs, yeah, all of those things. And then it takes some time for me, it took some time for me to learn how to accept things and be able to let them go as well. And also, there's that aspect of, especially when you're creating something, that vulnerability, that willingness to put yourself out there, that we both know, like, that is so nerve-wracking. the the moment I submitted the hit like submit button on the Google form, I was literally sweating. And my
You're not
hands were
alone.
shaking, and I said, "Oh no, I guess that's it. I submitted it." But yeah, it wasn't. It was I was really nervous when I first submitted it, because like what you said, you weren't sure if people were gonna like it, if they could relate, and like, who wants to read about sad, yeah, yeah, dark, sad things. Yeah, so that was, yeah, without taking up too much of, like, our time here, that was roughly what the process was like for me. And thank you
Right.
so much for appreciating.
Big love, man. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, like you said, the whole process, like, for you was 10 years. Like, I'm just curious though, how long have you been journaling?
Since I was maybe I want to say 7, 8. So so around, it's been 31, so 20 plus years.
Amazing. That's just amazing. And this is the first time they've actually published something
Yes, and
like
I have,
publicly.
yeah, I was actually fixing my journals last 2 months ago. And now beside me, I have this square box of all the journals I have.
Uh-huh.
It's roughly 30, probably
Amazing.
one a year, more or less.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it must have been like a massive cathartic process of like, okay, I'm finally gonna structure this and put it onto something that I might probably like. But I'm gonna get real with you. Like at the end, when you finished it, did you love it or did you hate it?
the
Because
what
the
I
whole
what
zine itself, yeah.
I actually didn't look too much at it after I published it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's also the right time where my yeah, because I've always loved writing, but I had to reach a point in time where my work won't represent who I was. Like I could
Right.
just do the work, give it to people
Mm-hmm.
objectively, and they will do with it whatever they want. But I have put in the work and the my heart into it. And
Right.
even actually the layout, I did it myself, but I some of the skills I learned from my first job. So
Okay.
that's why I said it was really a process of 10 years.
Right.
Finding the right picture, the cover picture,
Mm-hmm.
laying it out. And at first I made it like one, skipping pages because if you printed it out, it has to be folded. And
Right.
then I thought, oh wait, no, I'm not printing this out, so I had to redo the layout and
Okay.
all of that. But yeah, excuse me. But I I think my fear was when I was reading the poems that they all sounded too much alike because like I was writing it in one season or one over a course of a short period of time basically, but I guess it's kind of like when you hear artists write about their albums, sometimes they say, "Oh, I wrote all of the albums in a span of a weekend or a
Mm-hmm.
week."
Mm-hmm.
And then they produce it and then they tour the album. And
Right.
then other albums are made over the course of several years or have one song that they didn't know where to put and then they put it
Yeah.
in that
Mm-hmm.
album. So yeah, my process is a mix of both.
Okay.
I wrote it in one week, but there are some poems that I thought, I really like this one that I wrote years ago, but I said, and so I put it in.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and what I really wanted was, I won't say I love it. I won't say I love the what I put out because, like you said, we have high standards
Right.
for ourselves, and because you've been reading, well, I've been reading really good books and following poets and other writers.
Mm-hmm.
There's this tendency to want to compare yourself to their output. But what's really important for me before I published this collection was that if I read it, will I be able to, for example, I didn't make it. If I read it, will I be able to relate to it? Is it honest enough? Is it real enough without being too introspective or
Okay.
too me that other
Mm-hmm.
people are feel alienated by what I'm writing. So it's always that mix of it's my personal stuff, but because I'm publishing it, I want people to be able to connect with it.
Right.
And so it's not just a matter of self-expression because if it were, then I would just keep it all in my journal.
Correct.
But I really wanted it to, yeah, so even the, I guess, the pricing model, um maybe we can talk about that later. But I really
Okay.
wanted it to I wanted it to be a pay what you want model, because not everyone can afford. I mean, even if it's just $1, not everyone can afford that. And usually, when like the times that you need poems are usually the times when you're also financially not doing well or emotionally not doing well. And so I just wanted it to be a gift to people who would read it. Um,
Okay.
yeah. So that was the process. Like, I did my best. I'm not sure if I love it or not, but I try not to think too much about whether I love it or not. I think the most important thing is, can people relate to it, and
Right.
can they get their hands on it?
Okay. All right. I mean, that's a beautiful way to put it, saying that it's something that as you are putting out your vulnerability on on pages of paper, it's something that you want to gift it out. So I think that's one of like, it takes a lot of absolute courage to actually do that. And the main reason why I asked, if you loved it or hate it, because I've interacted with so many creators, and usually one of the most common things that they'll say that, after they have done publish something, they don't want to think about it. It's like, yep,
Mm,
it's out there. I've done my best. And I've even read in some like creators where they say that, um you know what, it takes me like a year or how many months later to actually revisit. And because like you said, it was made during a season, it was made during a period of time that we were going through, and that when you're expressing yourself, there's a lot of factors that comes into it. It's like you said, um how do you become vulnerable, and how do you know this is self-expression? How are people going to be receptive to these things? How are they going to take this in? And there's all these factors come in as you are creating, because you know that you have a specific genre or theme that you want to share out. And then the second part of it, the first part of hell of creating is of course like putting it together. Like what, how do I make this? How does this have flow? How does this have structure? And then like you was like, oh my god, layout and stuff like that, and everything comes in. And then the next obstacle is, as you created something, do I like this? I'm like, I did
mm,
my best, but then will people like it? And then that's the next level of how within a creator circle it's like, okay, do I overthink? I've always had so much courage for people like, it's the best, and if they like it, if they don't like it, deal with it. So I've always had so much, I'm like, how do you guys do that? Whereas, like you, I was like, um, how can I make this connect? How can I make people, because the beauty of publishing something is when people are able to relate to it and people share their own stories. And that's why we aspire to become storytellers, I guess, in a way. We're about, let's as we try to find our ways of putting our experiences on the canvas, we hope that this moves other people as well as how our favorite writers move us. And you were saying about, how I love the fact that you had references to its music, and then you had references to its, all these different kinds of artists. And like, do you think I can probably share out like, if there was like an artist that really or probably a writer that really inspires your style writing and stuff like that, who would that be?
um,
Or is that like a
oh
lot?
my, God, there's a
Okay.
lot. Um,
Okay.
yeah, just one. Um,
I'm gonna jog through the database there.
but what came to my mind was Krista Wells.
Okay.
She's a singer songwriter. You have to check out her
Okay.
songs. Um, yeah, so she's a singer songwriter, and she also did this of poetry, I think in 2020. But she's always
Mm.
been a a songwriter, so she writes songs for, big Christian names like Natalie Grant or people like those. But she's always been just in the background doing her craft, and so I really like her work because it's so uh personal, and she has this song called Lighter From Here, and one of the lyrics go something like uh it's I might butcher it up, but it's all getting lighter from here. So the idea is the days have been, I'm just gonna read it so I don't butcher it,
No
but
worries.
I think it's that simplicity that she uses simple words, because
Mhm.
sometimes with poetry you use deep words and no one understands
Correct.
what it means. um
It's like you're trying to understand it, and there's like a big word, and like, hang on, let me Google this.
yeah, so uh and
Okay.
this line, so, and if what lies behind is the darkest night of a long and brutal year, keep our eyes on the horizon, it's all getting lighter from here. So like that imagery of
Wow.
just
Yes.
sunrise, but it's always darkest before dawn.
Right.
And she actually wrote this, I think, after or in the middle of her divorce with her husband. So a lot of heavy things. And
Mhm.
maybe I would say another artist, but she's a makeup artist. So I don't know if you've seen Lisa Eldridge. I've been
No.
f- she's a British makeup artist, and I've been
Okay.
following her since I was in college. And I will link her to you. But then
Awesome.
she's actually in the latest Barbie movie. It was all the director, I think, or the makeup artist on the set used all of her makeup for the
Awesome. Okay.
Barbie
Okay.
movie. And I I think she was one of the first people in the industry. Like you said, she was in the industry, doing photo shoots and working with the big names and the big designers. But
Right.
she also had this, I guess, just willingness to teach people how to, like, everyday, normal, regular people, how to do their makeup. So she
Right.
went on YouTube before it was the cool thing to do. And
Mhm.
she just filmed her video, and she told no soul in the industry that she did something like that, because um back in the days, you don't really, like, if you're a professional
Right.
artist, you don't put out things on YouTube. And
Right.
that's for, like, the teenagers or the influencers, or not people with established names already. So she actually put it out. It was a morning, like, it was a makeup video for, like, what was that, like, if you look really tired, and the next
Right.
day, so she filmed it with her actual tired
I
like
could definitely use
hi-
that link.
yeah, tired face. And then so
Okay.
she went and uploaded it on YouTube. And I think for how many months nobody knew that it was there,
Right.
but then it started blowing up because it was so relatable, and it was so practical. And
Mm.
she also wasn't boasting about her background. It was just, I'm a makeup artist, this is how you do your face and la la la
Right.
eyes. And then as the her viewership began to grow, they actually start to realize that, oh wait, do you guys realize that we're getting tutorials from someone who could charge hundreds of pounds for an
Correct.
hour of,
Exactly.
like something like that. So but because she's built this community for 10 years already. Is it 2010? Yeah, 2010 her first video came out, or 13 years. Now she has her own makeup brand. She has her own
Right.
stuff, but her nerd with
We lose Diane.
Oh no,
Oh no. And she was like so on.
Southeast Asia internet problems.
Oh god. So yeah, it's like she was so on going on the topic. Are you back, Diane?
There's back.
yeah. So I was saying that she actually
Yeah.
didn't build her own distribution channel, so it's just all online. But
Hmm.
the connection that she's established with her viewership is something that's really inspiring
Hmm.
because not a lot of, I mean, of course there are different kinds of or ways of doing makeup, but she has this signature style that's very much based on like just enhancing what you have instead of changing everything.
Right.
But so then that would alienate other people. But for those who really love her, they really love her. And I talked about this in my previous talk as well. Like I think as artists or creatives, you want to stay true to the style that you have and not
Correct.
try to mimic other people because the reader or the viewer that you want is out there. You just have to find that one person
True.
who will be able to connect with your work, and then that person finds another person, and then eventually you build a community that
Right.
respects your work, and you don't have to. For example, like your work is very animated, and it reminds me a lot of like the manga, comics, and
Right.
it's that kind of introspective way of, oh, I don't think I'm gonna make it to this bus stop or train stop. But then you also have the cute illustrations. So it's like anime but in magazine form.
Yeah.
And I find it really cute because yeah, it's something new. I mean, for me, I don't usually read a lot of comics, but
Yeah.
it's really cute because it's a, like you said, it's a travel log. And I I feel like if you printed it out, it would also be something really cute to have just in your handbag or flipping through it while you travel alone on a train. So traveling while traveling. And
Okay.
um yeah, so that's something I so that's one of the persons that's inspired me. I guess with the philosophy of how he put things out there.
Right.
Um, like you just have to create out of a place of serving other people rather than um trying to get back immediately what you put out. So that's
Hmm.
something that I guess has inspired me and my process.
Right. Awesome. I think yeah, it's just really cool because a lot of the times because I work a lot with social media, work basically for work, and a lot of the times that when I'm looking at content and when that when a creator talks about getting their inspiration from, I find it that um a lot of the times creators talk about talking only from that particular industry. Like,
Mm,
where they say that, okay, like if I'm into film, I follow this director, I follow this film. And then if I'm doing, say, for example, comics, I only follow this artist or this kind of style. And that there is a lot of misconception that when you find inspiration, it only comes from one particular source. Whereas
mm,
I love the fact that you shared, like, okay, you've got it from lyrics, how, this makeup artist, where, how she delivers a message off to a community and how that inspires you. And I can see that within your work as well, like how like you said, when you said simplicity, I love the simplicity and the delivery of the words. because it really takes me on, sort of really a journey. I like can really follow through this. Like, right, I'm seeing it how she's breaking out thoughts. Like it's almost like a glimpse of what's going on up there, and it's like feels like a movie. And like I said, I'm a very visual person, so it's like I feel like I'm flipping through a photo book when I'm reading through your poetry. And I love the fact that it's the breakdown of it is just beautiful, with the simplicity of the words, with the delivery. And I love how the verses are broken down in that form. um and like I said about like about inspiration, there's a lot of things that where a lot of younger creators these days fail to see that it's not just that if you want to be a good artist or a good creator, you have to only study from the people thing. It really takes a whole lot of different other kinds of platforms. And especially like, how do you do it in the old school days? Going out there, just putting yourself out there, going to the park, going to festival, going to galleries and stuff like that. I know the pandemic has made a lot of us super introverted, but I think, I mean, I love my bed. If I could marry my bed, I would. But I've been, I've been like really, I mean, among some of the things, like you, I was really pushing myself to get back out there on finding different kinds of inspiration. And it's funny that you mentioned music being one of the key inspirations for you. Is the same thing for me as well. I mean, I'm the sort of person that puts on music on loud, and sometimes that's why I'm a bit deaf sometimes. But yeah, but so I'm music, but I really find a lot of resonance in lyrics as well. And I think that I listen to like a whole wide variety of things. So like it goes on, like I initially started like with punk music, with ska music and stuff like that. But I think maybe age is kicking in, so I've been really going to all these different genres. But there's something beautiful about the relation when I can say with poetry and as well with lyric writing, that how it really moves you. And especially like for me, like some of my favorites definitely come like with stuff like from Smashing Pumpkins. I really love even with some of the punk bands like with like Green Day, and then like with now
Green Day.
my age is
Wake me
showing,
up, wake
sorry.
me up, wake me up when September ends.
If you guys are watching this, sorry, my age is showing totally. And then yeah, I mean like with newer bands there was stuff like Kings of Leon, and like
No, wait, I know that you somebody, you somebody. Yes.
yeah, and it's just beautiful because like how um that was also a key thing about listening to songs, not just for the beat or the melody of it, but how they deliver the lyrics of it. And that was one of the key things that really inspired in terms of my drawing process. And like when I think about this particular scene, you translate yours into words, whereas I translate mine into pictures and panels. So that was like even though that a lot of people said my drawings were cute, I was trying not to go cute, but then yeah. But I mean that's how it was delivered and that's how people interpret it. And yes, because I can be a bit of a comedy, so my like I love dark humor, so I do put in, I translate all the sad things into humor and wit and
Mm,
sarcasm. And like for my book, a lot of it was I would actually play a song, like how I work at a page, and I've been listening to the song. This was the actual mood because then I'll relate back when I was traveling.
yeah,
Oh
very,
my god,
very, very cute.
thank you. But yeah, I mean like where was oh about music. So when I was traveling, a lot of the times I was listening to songs and then I would use back these songs to translate back into my drawings. And so that was how that I had like I related it back to my work and I was heavily inspired. Like for example, there was one time I was really sad. I was actually bawling my eyes out in the middle of Tokyo because one, my phone died, had no power bank. I was really lost in a new area and I was like and I was getting sick. That was like the worst things that can happen when you're alone somewhere far out and you don't know who to reach out to. And for some reason when I was sitting down at a park, I heard someone blasting out there was a Ariana Grande song. It was called Breathing. And it was just insane because that was a song that, that really and somehow or other Japan is amazing in terms of efficiency. They're like when you tell them where you want to go, it's like they have all this map system and stuff like that. And so there was a song that kept ringing it, and I actually wrote it down in my sketchbook. Like you, with many millions of journals that you keep, I have my sketchbook with me, and so I actually wrote down the lyrics that I remembered, and then just keep on breathing, and it's like yeah, it's a repetitive song, but anyways, the lyrics are something that really helped me through with this whole journey and process, and that's how basically it got translated in a song into the page, like can I really do this alone, and then there was all this relatability. Yeah, like back to the topic stuff before I go into different tangents. So yeah, the inspiration of it was like how we can find things from different other platforms and music. So I totally understand when you said that, oh, like when how this artist, moves your work, the same goes for me as well. And then at the end of it is I guess that it's something that will continually move us as well. And I just hope that this is something, since it's a sharing session, like one of the things that I really do hope that if there are other creators who are doubting themselves but feel really inspired, like please, I mean, don't let, other creators on social media tell you what you should be following or inspired by. If it's something that moves you, hey, just put that all together into your work and create. That's one of the things that yeah, because I teach students, and a lot of the times when they're drawing something, they only have one very stereotypical view of saying that, creating something, writing something has to be following the great masters. I mean, yes, you can see for skill and technique, but stories come from so many people, and inevitably they forget that the best of stories actually come from the closest, which is like ourselves, our family, or the people that we deal with every day, or the people that we pass by every day. These are the stories that should inspire you. And then the other factors like music, food, and yeah, I'm just waiting for Vinny to come in because I would
I
love
know.
to talk to him about food.
Yes, food.
And
And
then
it's a big part of traveling. 'Cause
yes,
I saw it in your illustrations.
oh yeah,
The strawberry daifuku daifuku with the mochi with the strawberry. Oh, that's my favorite.
it goes.
I would
It,
It looks so yummy. I was actually zooming in earlier when I was
okay.
browsing.
Well, if you
It's
come to
like
Cal, I'll take you to. We have a lot of those spots here as well. But then, yeah, I mean, it's beautiful how even food can create. I think that's one thing about Asians and food is that our love for food is inevitable.
the
It's like
Southeast Asians.
it's Southeast Asian thing. It's like food is integral. It's like when you meet them, it's like they don't ask you how are you, they ask you have you eaten. So,
Mm,
and then
yeah.
and how people feed us. It's like okay, when if they're fed, they're all good. The beauty of food and how it inspires us. But that's I'll say that for Vinny though, because I really need to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I wanted to yes, no, I wanted to ask how your process was like.
right.
Did you draw it frame by frame first, or did you have the words first and then you thought, ah, okay, maybe I'll put the this picture here, here, and here, or I have all these photos that I took. Did you lay them out
Okay.
first, or
Okay.
yeah?
Right. It was. I'll be very honest. It was something that I really rushed through. So like I was targeting to release this on my birthday. So it's like every
Mm,
year I'll tell myself I need to do something that I'll be proud of for my birthday. So at that particular year, it was to create a zine, and as well that
mm,
I was like, okay, I'm gonna finish. So there were a lot of things that I wanted to put in into the book. So the process of it was chaotic. So there was like I don't know whether it's me being having ADHD or something like that. So what I did was really first off was compiling um the areas that I wanted to do because it's a travelogue. So I wanted to really cover on the places that I wanted to share out to people, like Shimokitazawa, about Shinjuku, and about going to Asakusa. So these are the first key things was really identifying the places that meant a lot to me. And then after that, it was working out the imagery from there. So it was like, what were the things that really moved me? What were the things that was really memorable and I can tell a story from? And then
mm,
so I was writing out. So that was where my writing process started. So
mm,
basically listing it down, what I felt, what are the things I saw, what are the things I heard, and then as well as then that's when I started working out with drawing it. So traditionally, people when it comes to illustrated stuff, they would say that they would do storyboards and stuff like that. Mine was totally
mm,
freestyle. So I was just like
mm,
just whatever came to my mind, I'll put a picture. And it was just like how you do with old school zines. So, like when
mm,
you're creating a page and the whole cut and paste thing. So that was
mm,
basically my approach. So it was really old school, like these are the different images. These are the words that I want to put into it. How do I cut and paste this and then finish it? So that was basically my whole process because I grew up with my sister was a huge collector of zines and she'll like order stuff like from UK and from the US, and I love how everything was cut and paste. Like
mm,
before then there wasn't like digital imaging and stuff like that, so it's like stuff they got off from magazines, newspapers, and then put that all together. So that was exactly how I approached it. So it didn't have like some like the typical structure that if my students are watching this, I'm so sorry. I've been teaching you guys about structure and I've been a chaos. So I'm so sorry. So yeah, mine was totally going against the grain. So it's just like, all right. I've been telling my kids, oh, you have to follow your structure and panels and wireframes. And here I am talking like, I went with total chaos. So yeah. But anyways, yeah, it was just really just cut and paste and then hopefully move on into the next page. And in terms of the style itself, actually, one of my biggest inspirations, or in terms of for that bit, was really from J.D. Salinger. So J.D. Salinger, Catcher in the Rye. I loved how Holden was really when he talks, even though it's very colloquial, it's a slang. I love how it's like in phrases. I mean, I know there's a lot of people, can go dive deep into how, it's written, but it was just that was a really main inspiration and how when he has a thought and that, is expressed out in quotes and stuff. So that was what I was really going for. It's like when you visit somewhere, what are the thoughts that
mm,
evoke you? So that was more on the style and for the writing process itself. Like what were the thoughts that evoked you when you were in this place? So that was what I was trying to emulate in my zine itself. So yeah, I think that's pretty much in terms of my process. So in overall, it was chaotic good, I guess. So yeah.
yeah, and I'm just flipping through your
Right. Oh,
thing
okay.
right now. But I find it really interesting that you were able to translate it to like yeah, yeah, well, food
Yeah.
Vinny,
Yeah.
paging Vinny.
Yes. So thank
Yeah,
you.
it's just very even the
Yeah.
dango mochi balls.
Right.
actually, I wanted to ask about the birthday gift because this one is also kind of my birthday thing as well.
Right.
And it's
Okay.
funny, yeah, because my birthday is on May, but
Okay.
it's just something fun I wanted to do. Not really fun, but meaningful that I
Yeah.
I wanted to do. And
Okay.
yeah, it's funny how we have a lot of similarities when we're
Yeah.
creating. I also do listen to music on full blast,
Okay.
and but I have my earphones on, and sometimes I even have. I don't know if you listen to Taylor Swift, but there's this cover of her 1989 album
Okay.
covered by Ryan Adams. So it's a rock. He made it
Oh.
into a rock album. So the
Okay.
1989, which is very pop, he made it into a rock album,
Okay.
and
I have
it's
to
just
check this
really
out.
really good. Um, sometimes I don't like listening to it because there are controversies surrounding him, like how he how he is as an artist or as a person. But then
Mhm.
the actual covers themselves are really good, and it kind of also makes the lyrics of Taylor Swift shine
Right.
because yeah, we know she's a good songwriter.
Mm.
Some people don't like her, but her songs, the words are really good. And when you
Mhm.
take it and then you make it into a rock cover, it, like what you said, it adds another dimension to
Right.
the the actual song. You hear
Yeah.
it differently. And speaking of other sources of inspiration, so for example, this makeup artist I was telling you about, she also was saying how she gets inspiration from chickens, like the feathers of the chickens or birds,
Okay.
the color blending, the color, how it
Okay.
mixes together. So
Right.
she doesn't really follow makeup artists. She follows, you know, farmers or people who
Okay.
who
That's
are like
interesting. Okay.
scientists and
Okay.
um chicken feathers and or even yeah bird feathers, because from there she gets a lot of inspiration for the color mixes and her
Mhm.
color palettes. And
Mhm.
sometimes I think when you're stuck in that makeup bubble, it's always just the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of pick up on the same trends or the same
Yes.
way of doing things because you're
Mhm.
inside that bubble. So yes, I think it's important to break free from
Yes.
that particular medium or industry.
Mhm.
And it also, I mean, if anything, I think it also refreshes you and how you approach your own medium. So for example,
Right.
if you're a poet or if you illustrate, but once you start, for example, like once you start doing more digital work instead of analog, it also
Mhm.
adds another, it kind of rejuvenates your creative energy
Yes.
because it makes you think, oh, these are what I work with when I do poems. But then if I look at someone who's like a friend who's doing maybe an epic, like a novel of like three books,
Right.
that's a different kind of creative process where they have to think about the plot and make world building and making sure all of the elements work together, the characters, the character
Yes.
arc. So it's just you get to appreciate more things about
Mhm.
other people's work, and then informs your own work. Because then, for example, you I can make the poems more narrative like
Mhm.
because I read other things other than
Right.
than poems. Yeah. Yeah. And then what else did you want to ask?
Ah. Okay. I have a lot. so, so I mean,
I
like,
really wanted to get into Vinny's because
yes,
even in my own like in my poems I have a lot of food references if you noticed. Yeah,
it's like, this is good.
cake
Yes,
and croissant and lechon and
especially the one in Venice thing, sales person, and yeah. So I was like, ooh, food. So yeah, I was really hooked on that one as
yeah,
well. And
the
then, so
cake.
yeah, I mean, food is the best way to unite people. So yeah, without claiming things. But anyways, there was one thing that um because that I know that there was a lot of the theme for your current book was there was a lot of things. There were certain themes like there was about grief. There was about solace, finding solace. There was also there was a lot of questions about overcoming an obstacle and kind of thing. Um, after writing all of this, like, what was it like for you? Like, was it like, I don't know, like how some creators they feel like, okay, um, it was a healing experience, and that hopefully that within the next, set of things that a different theme will come up. So how was it like for you? Like what was like the notable experience that you can say from writing this thing on a personal point of view?
um it reminded me of how good it felt to write and to put things down on paper. So
Mhm.
it's not even so much the process of editing it afterwards. It's more when you're putting the actual pen on the paper and writing it down and translating your thoughts into the paper. I mean that process is priceless for me. Like it you're just in that flow. People call
Yes.
it the flow moment, and
Mhm.
sometimes you're inspired and sometimes you're not, but as soon as you just sit down and try to write something, eventually something will come out. I mean, at
Yes.
first you might be like, "Oh, it's a blank page. You don't know what to write." But as you if you force yourself to sit down, and also that's where deadlines come in. If you force yourself to sit down and just write something, something will eventually come out,
Mm.
even if it's not the way you want it to come out. Um, yeah. So that process of just birthing, birthing something into
My God.
yeah, that's I think it's a term, birthing something into from your thoughts to actual paper and having it concretely in concrete form. It's something I would always treasure,
Mhm.
and it's not really. I don't think of it as something I need to get over. For example, the sad things or
Right.
whatever those themes were. I'm actually thinking of I might add to the collection if if I have more, then I can just
Mm.
add to it. But yeah, it's not. I am hoping that there are also a lot more fun or joyful things in the future,
Okay.
because the sweetness is a gift. That's
Yes.
one of my more happy
Yes.
poems in
Yeah.
the collection. So I'm hoping to write more of those instead of
Okay.
the initial like very heavy things. But I think that's how it's also I take a lot of inspiration from the Psalms, like in the Bible. So in the
Mhm.
Psalms, it's like Psalms 101 to 100, 101 to 150, and
Mhm.
then it's actually like 5 books. But when you
Okay.
follow it, um, it actually goes from like the really dark Psalms all the way
Mhm.
to the end. It becomes really joyful and
Okay.
like praise and happy, and I think that's a mirror of how we go through life as well. When you I think when we don't embrace those hard things, we tend to go through life just numb,
Right.
don't feel anything
Right.
because you're not feeling the sad things. You can't really feel the happiness.
Right.
So it's just a thing. But if you allow yourself to go through those really sad moments and just you think you won't live, but you will. If you just go through them, you find that you get out of the other side much lighter and much happier, much
Right.
freer as well. And it then becomes this you train yourself to be ambidextrous in the sense that if good things come, you're able to be happy. If bad things come, you're able to be sad. So you're not just always um and so yeah, I think for me that's one of the hopes that some of like it would still be you know capturing the sacred moments in life,
Yeah.
which I think is a theme in like whimsical things in my poems, but that's one of the things I hope would happen in the next few months or projects that I'm going to work on, that sense of levity, I guess, like that lightheartedness
Mhm.
that we all have as children, but we lose it as we grow older. And
Correct.
that's something I really liked about your illustrations as well. I know that it tackles deep things, like getting the courage to go to a foreign country and traveling alone, like without knowing anyone. And there are so many dangerous things that can happen to you. I mean, Japan is relatively safe, but if you go to other countries, there's that fear and that risk. But if you don't, yeah, like my my collection says, if you don't venture out, you don't really get the returns as well.
Right.
It's so good to have that solo traveling experience, but it's also very risky. Like what you said,
Yes.
you got lost, your phone died, you're
That was a
falling in
big
the
thing.
middle of Tokyo. Um, but if I asked you now if you would do it again, I'm sure you would do it
In a
again because
heartbeat.
yeah, because that's what life is about.
Yeah.
You could think of, oh, it might get lost, this might happen, whatever, and you prepare for it, but then you also go there scared, I guess. Like you have to be wise about it. You don't just go there and not have anything prepared, but you also have to have that sense of adventure and openness to
Correct.
letting things happen to you, or meeting new people or trying new things, or just also making yourself really uncomfortable in a new
Yeah.
place. Like you just want to be back in your bed
Right. I
with
mean,
your
like, yes. And with my cat and yeah, and all that. I totally get you. I mean, it's awesome the fact that you feel that way, like after creating a piece, and that there are in a way there were a lot of discoveries, like, and I find it beautiful as well how that faith is also incorporated and mirrored within your work as well. Where I understand that a lot of people, when they're venturing out with themes that are really vulnerable, with themes that are really sensitive and personal, a lot of the times it's really getting deep in the thoughts without something to hold on to. And I find it beautiful that how that you've actually had faith as something that was mirrored onto your works, where you say that how it went on from having these really dark themes and then slowly venturing out into something that's hopeful. And I find that really beautiful. And I actually felt that personally as a reader, so there was a lot of things that I could relate to, as you know, for me myself as well as being who has had suicidal thoughts and stuff like that. And so and as well survived it, I really loved and I really related to it. And then how slowly that was also for me that finding faith was something that could be mirrored into my work. I think the key word here is actually being hopeful. I think that's one of the things that's beautiful about when a creator is able to put hope into other people as well, besides connection and stuff like that. And I felt and I love that in your work where even though you say it's whimsical, but I felt that it was just, it gave me something to look forward to. And I was like, okay, so what's going to happen next in the next story? What's going to happen in the next poem? What's in the next page? And that's why I love it. And I kept reading it. I was like, oh, this is fun because I did feel that. And the same thing, like with my travel log, like despite all the fear and everything, there's still something deep in us. I guess it's a human thing where we're still hopeful for something good will come out of this. Something good will work out where like you said, like the feeling of, you know if you just put it out there as a creator, if you just put it out there, something will eventually happen, instead rather than not putting it out at all and it all just stays here. And I see that with a lot of artists as well, where if they're creating something, it just stays as a JPEG inside your computer, and that's it. It doesn't venture out anywhere else. It's forever work in progress. But then if you
Mm-hmm.
don't put it out there, you're gonna just constantly overthink, like what if, could have, should have, and it'll be something that'll bother. And I think it's something that comes with age as well, because like in your youth, you're always thinking, oh, what if this, what if this one, how are they gonna do the feedback? Whereas, and then when you start getting older, it's like, okay lah, you know, just put
Yeah.
it out there,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like, okay, if they don't like it, then yeah, okay, fine, I did my best, I tried. But you put, like you said, you put your heart and soul in something, and then that's when the learning process comes in. How do you do better in the next part? Um how do you improve, or what are things that you probably want to change? And that also comes along with being hopeful for the next part. But I'm curious though, when is your next published works gonna come out?
Uh, it's in progress. Yeah, no, I haven't been writing much, but it's that process of where you're marinating things in
Yeah.
your
Oh,
head.
the word themes, the food themes are coming out now.
Yeah, marinate.
Yes.
Yeah.
um.
I like what you said about how as creatives it's yeah, sometimes we think or there's this tendency to minimize what we do because I mean people won't it's not life or death, but sometimes it can be. Especially when you were in the Tokyo what's the train station
I think
and
that was
the
in Shinjuku. Is it
Shinjuku.
Shinjuku or Shibuya? I don't know. I think I just got
Yeah.
lost. There were too many.
Shibuya is just chaotic.
Yeah.
so so when that song came on, it helped to ground you.
Yes.
Um, and I think that's something that music does as well. It just helps ground you into something present instead of being lost in your swirling thoughts like why did I even come here? Why did I lose my why
Yeah.
did I charge my
Yeah.
phone battery? And
Oh,
yeah, so that's a lot of that's I guess that's the lighter side of it, but there's also the deeper side to it where sometimes when you hear a song and it really connects with you.
right.
And I've experienced this. It makes you feel like there's hope again. Like there's something to look forward to, or even if it's just replaying that song over and over again. That's something that I think as creatives is something that we are able to give to the world where um because we've grappled with what that means and I think it's harder, so much harder to build things up than to tear them down.
Right.
And it takes a lot of work and heart and effort and tears to get to a place where you can build something and
Right.
create something, even if it's just a small piece of art or song or something very simple. Um, and by doing it, it's like an act of defiance. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings. There's so much despair and darkness and evil side is winning, but there's the scene in the last in the movies, but it's not in the books, but there's a scene where Sam, so the hobbits, right? So Frodo and
Yeah.
Sam. So Sam
Yeah.
tells Frodo, do you remember the strawberries in Shire? And
Yes.
then
I remember that.
um
Yeah.
and then Frodo was like dead and does not remember anything, but for Sam, that's a thought that pushes him forward and even gives him the strength to carry Frodo
Yes.
to Mount Doom.
Yes.
And I think as creatives, we make those strawberries for people. Kind of like, yeah, the Daifuku drawing. That's why I love
Okay.
strawberries so much. So
Okay.
strawberries and cream, we're
Okay.
relating everything to food. But
Yes.
I think as creatives, that's what we do. And even something so simple as creating a piece of food, making the dough, putting the strawberry, and
Right.
that process is incredibly um it's a hard process, meaning to say you can choose not to do it. You can just eat the strawberry and eat like flour and that's it. but
Okay.
but you go through the process of
Yeah.
kneading it and making it look pretty and shaping the flour,
Yes.
and you give it to someone else, and when they receive it, it's something that's beautiful, and it's something that's able to build them up instead of uh, destroy them or tear them down,
Right.
or say like, why would I create, it doesn't make a difference. I mean, we can get into that mindset of doesn't make sense in the grand scheme of things, like people are still dying, people are starving. Why would I want to create something out of just why would anyone want, like we said, why would anyone want to read a book of poetry or a travelogue about someone traveling alone in Japan? Like, there are more important things in the world. but
Right.
but actually, people need that, um that life,
Right.
evidence of life being lived and
Correct.
life being beautiful, that there's something instead of nothing, that there's your work instead of nothing.
Correct. I mean, like the whole idea of creation itself. It's um stories that we live for. I think like I get what you're saying about, the love and effort that comes into it, and how essentially that, someone's being able to receive it. Like for example, like you said about how we've made strawberries and cream, and then sometimes there's the plating that comes in, and then when you give it to someone, it's not so much of the hard process that comes with it, but it's seeing someone enjoy it, someone having an experience through your own effort. I think that's the beauty of creating something. I think I totally get that. It's like and just hopefully that the story that we create is something that people will be able to be receptive with, and something that we creators as well need to slowly learn to overcome, not to overthink as well. Guess that's one of
Mhm.
the things about like, oh, it'll be all good. So yeah, but no matter what, it's still like, okay, what's the feedback for this and stuff. I think years in the agency of forever getting reworks or redos, I think that's something that probably hit us as well. I think we know best about about having harsh criticisms and like living to expectations. But yeah, I think that's one of the beautiful things about creating something, whatever it is, whether it's a book or writing or making a cake or just putting out a piece. I think that's
Mhm.
beautiful in that sense. So yes, I'm just curious though, is Vinny still gonna join us?
Because you want to talk about food.
In fact, it's starting to like it's gearing there like all the way for right now. I think like one thing that's awesome about the three of us is that like for yours you had like whimsical food. For mine I had like a page dedicated to food. And then Vinny's was like totally like, oh wow, it's all about
Food.
rendang. So food. So I'm like, and I'm curious now though, how is it really that good, that rendang that she's talking about? So yeah.
Yeah, she was saying how her dad would leave, what was that, like buy something and then leave the, for example, three pieces of rendang. And then,
Yeah.
or if it was just two, he would split with their mom and he would leave the one piece to her.
Oh, this is insane. I was just like, wow. I'm like, I'm curious how good this thing is. But then, again, like, yeah, I think like, just throwing it out in the open, like, since that, um, would you have like, for anyone who's following us, would you have like any kind of particular advice, like, because you've gone through the whole obstacles, you've gone through like, the whole process of it and of how you sharing it with your inspirations and stuff like, I mean, what kind of advice would you give out onto other people who's also attempting at, writing a poetry book or zine for the first time? Like maybe that's something that you would want to share.
um, well, I don't have any particular advice,
Right.
but one thing that has helped me is just trying not to put too much pressure on myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it is a big thing that you released a poetry collection for the first time, and it's part of this Southeast Asian
Right.
festival, and a lot of people are on there looking at your work. But there's also this aspect of, I guess, a humility, I would say. Like,
Mhm.
it's not it's not going to be life or death. It's not something that would define you for the rest of your life. You can still
Right.
create other things. If you don't, if
Yes.
it's the last poetry book you create, it's fine.
That's
If you
good.
go on to create a novel or do, like painting, acrylic painting, or switch mediums, no one's going to come back to you and say, "Hey, remember that poetry collection you did 5 years ago? How come you don't write poetry anymore?"
Right.
No one's going to do that because people are just busy with their own things, busy with thinking about their own um dreams or their own excuse me, what
Anyways,
they want to do. And so I think just take the pressure of yourself. Like, if you create something and it connects with people, and of course you want to do your best, but it doesn't have to be, how when you were younger it's like, oh, it's like something that would define you for the rest of your life, or something that
right.
would be, oh, I have to create this body of work and I have to be proficient and I have to be creating this every few weeks or every few months or
Mm-hmm.
like every few years. But that's just creating is already hard enough. I don't think the process of putting out something is already hard enough. I don't think you need that extra pressure on
Yes.
yourself, or
Yes.
even pressure from other people to be like, hey, when's your next something coming out? But just just enjoy the process. And that would be the most advice thing I can advise.
but it's good stuff. I mean, I totally relate to that as well. I mean, I totally understand of like enjoying the process and just going through putting yourself out there. And it's something that only when you yourself do it, like you can get so much advice on social media on like, oh, these are the 5 steps on creating a successful book, or these are, the quickest way on how to do that thing. But
Mm.
it's only eventually that when you put yourself right in front of the canvas and going through it, then only then you'll be able to learn in terms of the obstacles, because the obstacles you go through is really personal, and that the things that you do, that it's something that only you yourself would know, like, oh, okay, this is something that I went through, and this is something that I will learn from it, because the triggers are all something that not only hits you in terms of your skill, but as well as a personal. It could be mental, it could be physical. Like some artists can't draw all the way till nighttime, or some of them can only do um when trauma hits, or when there's a trigger that hits, some people create that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a really personal thing, is obstacles that you have to go through. And then only you're able to create it. As that happens, don't overthink, and like you said, enjoy the process of it. Because like I guess that goes on to saying that, hey, like um this is the stuff that I created from a number of things. And that's basically that, and this number of things comes from triggers, comes from memories, comes um from some things that were inspired, and so many things. And that combination of things is the happiness of it. It's like that's where the inspiring part of it comes, because when the actual final product comes out, like we were talking about, did we love it, or do we hate it? It's like, no, it's not that we hate it, or we love it, but it's like we're happy we done it, because it's that process of things that puts out together. And really sound advice coming, for people who want to go into the poetry as well. I think it's the same thing that I would share out with other people as well. Um, if they're wanting to embark on creating a zine, something that there are so many guides out there how to create beautiful zines. There are so many ways on like what is the right method, or how do we talk about doing cost efficient, or what kind of skills or what kind of things people look for relatability. But at the end of the
Mm.
day, it's about really putting out authenticity. For me, it's about really being true to what you want to share out with people, because people can, I don't know, there are some books when I read, or some poems where I feel like they're really trying to sell an idea. It doesn't feel like it's coming from the writer itself. That's one some of the things, like I was like, what are you trying to sell? Are you trying to sell more of, are you trying to flex your situation? Like what are you on, or what are you going through, and stuff like that. I don't find the authenticity of that. And that's one of the things that I why I love, like poetry books like yours, or like from other writers, is because you're able to feel the authenticity of the situation, where you can really able to feel. Because when you're authentic, you're really able to evoke real imagery, real stories from into canvas itself. So that's one of the things that I hope that other creators who are thinking about it, it's just, yeah, don't overthink it. Just be genuine about the story that you want to sell, or you want to put onto your book. And I'm definitely sure, like Diana said, there will be someone out there who will read it. There will be someone out there who will pick it and would love it. So don't keep it in your desktop. Make sure that it's published and it goes to
Yeah.
places like SLC. So yeah. So
Yeah. So
yeah, that's
join SLC and join our community.
yes. Please do.
There's a plug there.
We're like hard selling here. It's an awesome community with workshops and really cool people. So yeah,
You just get to babble along, babble about your latest process, latest projects. But
that's
yeah,
what we did.
one of the other advice or something that I personally follow is that sense of uh honesty and integrity, because like you
Right.
said, people sometimes when they write about these things, they can tend to, like faux vulnerability, like you just
Yeah.
share things to get sympathy from people,
Yes.
or you twist certain things in just the right way so people feel sorry for you, or or you yeah, it's manipulative.
Yes.
But there are writers, I think sometimes I read in social media or what, it has that like cringe factor of,
Yes. That's
are
the
you
word.
being honest, or there's no integrity in when you're reading the work. And
Yeah.
I think you can feel that as a reader,
Yes.
when someone is being fake, or
Correct.
yeah. So for me, that's one of the things I try to remember when I create, and not just.
Yes.
And I think before you can do that, you have to be honest with yourself as well, because you can't put out something that it's like half baked. So
Correct.
I mean, for example, you feel like, oh, I'm already over this situation, but actually you're not, and it will show through in your writing. So
Yes.
before you can convey that sense of acceptance or surrender or whatnot, it really has to happen inside of you. Like the quality. Who was it? I was reading this book yesterday by Ben Palpand. He said that the quality of your soul determines the quality of your work. So if there are so many young artists who want to sound like they have deep insights, or who want to
Correct.
sound deeper, but they don't care about the process of actually being a deeper person. And I think that's important. You can't just fake it, or what was that term, regurgitate what you think other people
Exactly.
want you to say, or what's the wise thing to say. If like what yesterday or the other day was it, with Therese and Jolene, we were talking about how your life experiences, even if it's, for example, in Malaysia, or for me in
Mhm.
the Philippines, your life experiences and the nuances would come out in your writing naturally. You don't have to force like the checklist checkbox of, if I'm
Correct.
writing an Asian story, therefore it has to have la 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 la.
Correct.
If you're writing from deep within who you are, it will show through. And in the same way, if you're writing from a place where you're unsure of yourself, it will
Correct.
also show through in
Yes.
put out. So it's more important for you to take care of yourself, and go through the process of being the person who has these deep, quote unquote, deep insights, versus appearing. I think that's the
Correct.
word.
Yes.
Appearing in this, social media age. We want to appear to be better or wiser or smarter than we really
Yes.
are. But when it comes to writing, I don't think you can hide that. Shows
Correct.
through in how you phrase things, and how what references you bring in,
Mhm.
the actual words, or even feeling that people get when they're reading through it, and they're like, it sounds like you just copied this off of somewhere. But you
Correct.
haven't really lived through that experience yourself. So that's one of the my other things, is the integrity part.
Yes.
And what about you?
I think I highly relate to that. And I totally agree. It's really sound advice. in a sense where when you're talking about integrity, when you're talking about writing in this day and age, one of the things that I notice a lot in, with a lot of young creators when they're trying to write something, write an experience. One of the reasons why I go through social media a lot is because to find a language or a tone that is relatable to the younger audience. But I find that a lot of the times, most of this are like copy and paste. It's not an authentic experience. As simple as I'm gonna go back to food, as simple as describing and how they went to a restaurant. It's like
Mm.
they would just say as simple as like, oh, this ramen was, it was really scrumptious, and and I love the thing and stuff like that. But sometimes I'm like, it's another copy and paste thing.
Mm.
It's like I want to know how was the texture like? How did you really feel when you did it? Evoke any memory in you? Did you like the fragrance of it? It's like I don't just want to know that it's it tastes good. It's so yum, and I'm so gonna bring my mom here. I'm like, oh God, can you please write a proper review? And it's so like these, it like you said, it just shows that when a writer or a creator lacks the experience, lacks going through different sources, and that's why it doesn't become authentic in the terms of writing because there's no experience on that end. They refuse to go deeper and really be vulnerable by expressing what they want to. And so that's seen, I think, that not only through writing, but I see that in art as well, where in illustrations a lot of the times I see a lot of beautifully drawn girls or characters, but they look dead. Why? Because the expression itself is something that's been copied off. It's something like I know that face, it's just a smiling girl. It's pretty, but I don't feel anything towards it. And so this is pretty much the advice. And like you said, it's about the willingness to have depth in the experiences you go through. It's not just about going to somewhere new and just consuming it, but really feeling it, I guess that's the word. And that's how, when you're able to feel all these things, then that's how authenticity builds. Because you're able to really narrate, or you're really able to tell a story that can bring a much more profound imagery to the reader or the viewer that's going through your work. And it's a cycle, I guess. It's like when you're able to inspire other people, then other people be inspired to create. And it's a ripple when it comes to the whole
Mm.
creation process. And that's why authenticity is key. I mean, I know there are some times when you're writing with the intent of creating fiction. But
Mm.
even so, even if it's from a fictional thing, it needs to come with authentic experiences, authentic
Mm.
feelings, authentic, um, I don't know.
Heartbreak.
Yeah, it's just, it's real. And then only you're able to create good fiction, like how we love, okay, as simple as fantasy, like how you were talking about LOTR, you know,
Mm.
but it comes from real, authentic human relatability and experiences. How do we keep a memory and how that memory gives us hope? So I guess these are things that I hope that can be explored more by other writers and creators. And hopefully, like you said, like your work was no censorship. So the same thing with other creators, like don't censor yourself for the sake of other readers. I mean, yes, there may be some kind of filter that may be needed, but the kind of censorship meaning like don't hold yourself back too much just for the sake of pleasing another person. So yeah.
And also, when you mentioned Lord of the Rings, like for Tolkien, a lot of
Yes.
the experiences was birthed from his experience in World War.
Right.
So losing friends in the you call this the battle, and
Right.
yeah, just I mean those are the experiences that he drew from in order to create that world that he created. And Going back to what you said about the copy paste thing, it's also, I guess, even when you go on like Instagram, people have the same makeup look, and sometimes it
Mhm.
bothers me so
Right.
much that
Mhm.
when you look back in maybe our mom's albums, there was like 80s and they had like blush way up here and
Right.
sparkly, lime green eyeshadow, but at least it was something was that felt authentic. Like people were experimenting, and even if it looked
Like,
bad,
yeah.
it had, I guess the word we're looking for is the character.
Yes.
It had character instead of looking dead. Like
Yes.
it might be pretty and polished and expensive looking, but it looks dead. Doesn't have that character that we're looking for and that
Yeah.
realness to, for example, like how you do your makeup or how you create a dish.
Mhm.
Like it's just very standard and manufactured, and
Right.
and then therefore you could scale it up quickly because it's very standard. Whereas if
Right.
it's something that's handmade and each piece has its own individual character, it's much harder to sell. And then that's where the balancing between selling art and making art comes into play. But I could totally relate with what you said about the faces looking dead, because it's
Yeah.
just all been, this is what a pretty girl's supposed to look like. Therefore, I will draw something like this. And then it just ripple effects, just, oh, I will copy this, or I will copy this.
Right.
Whereas if you start with something that's, maybe not a traditional kind of beauty, and then other people see it and they're inspired to create their own version or
Yes.
their own perspective on vision on what a beautiful girl looks like, then that also creates that ripple effect.
Yes.
So I guess yes, like in some shape or form, we don't put too much pressure on ourselves when we're creating, but then there's power in the small things of being
Yes.
like that integrity. If you create something that's life-giving or generative,
Mhm.
it creates life in other people,
Yes.
then even your one small thing is enough to create that ripple effect. Yeah, so it's a balance of you're not thinking too much of your own work, but then knowing that your work does matter. If you put it out, if you create
Yeah.
it, if you put it out, it
Right.
will impact someone. Yeah.
Brilliant. So
Oh
yeah.
no, Vinny isn't coming
Yes.
anymore, so we can jump to the food. Our
Okay, even
favorite
you, we already
favorite
jumped onto it.
our favorite part.
Yes. So yeah, yeah, but yeah, Raphael's typing out token was an anarchist, so like, ah, okay. So yeah, I think like pretty much like the whole time, like I do hope that whoever who's still following us, like pretty much understand like this is like the whole process of it. Like what inspires us, and I guess that at the end of the day, it's just about being just getting real and like don't overthink and just create, just go for it. So that's like pretty much I think like with all the other zine sessions, I think the same thing as well is about how you derive different inspirations and put that into something and to create. Um I guess like one of the last things that I actually wanted to ask, because that I'm a visual person, like what was, and for some reason I found that with your work there was a lot of like imagery and sensory in terms of how the language and how the things that how as a writer, because for me as a visual person, I'll have pictures. That's what helps me to translate things. But how is it for you? That was it like, do you collect photographs as well, or is it like just putting it into your journals and then that's how you put it, or is it just from, I don't know, like you said just now, you said there was from lyrics and stuff like that. But on a personal basis, what was it like for you putting this images onto canvas? Like, did you like take photos from your own experiences as well, or is it just like purely on full on writing with text and stuff like
I really appreciate that you said it was a visual journey to go through. Coming from someone who is a visual artist, that means a lot. And then also when you work with poetry, I think the important thing is the imagery, the
that?
metaphors, the things that poet is able to see. That, for example, there's this poem by Jane Kenyon, and it goes something like things. Let me just pull it up. Like, all right, so this one, it's called Things by Jane Kenyon. Um,
Okay.
so the last few lines says things simply lasting, then failing to last. Water, a blue heron's eye, and the light passing between them.
Okay.
Into light, all things must fall, but at last to have fallen. Like just that imagery of light, and then the bird, and then the water. That happens every day, but it takes someone like her to capture that and to put it into words, and for us as readers to remember and help us see the world differently the next
Yeah.
time we're in that kind of an environment. And to answer your question, I don't actually take a lot of photographs, but I enjoy drawing a lot as well. And
Must share.
but the do I share it now? Shamelessly picking. It's a
Please
work in
follow down.
progress. It's a work in progress, but this is a pastel paint a work in
Publish.
progress. But yeah, so there's a when I write the poems, I actually don't have any references, even journals. It's I don't know if it's something that's unique to me, but and what usually happens is, for example, I can go back to a certain place in time and relive the memory.
Mm,
For example, the Venice one,
right.
I can go back and remember, like, oh, this is what w- air smells like, and what I felt, and the sounds, and what I saw in that
Mm,
moment. And then that's where I write those things down
okay.
from. So it's never really a photograph, because if it's a photograph, you can't capture those exact emotions that
Okay.
it
Interesting.
evokes. So for me, that's how yeah, I guess because I'm also very like, sensitive. My everything is like my nervous system is very sensitive, so it's whatever impression it gives to me
Hmm.
is actually heightened. So if it's so, you can imagine if it's something that's really beautiful, then it will or if it's really painful, it will stay with
Mhm.
me for life.
Mhm.
I can go back to that exact moment 10 years
Okay.
later and feel what I felt then. So that's my I guess behind the scenes of
Okay.
what you're
It's
asking me.
interesting. Yeah, it's just interesting because like a lot of the times, like I said, like you have inspirations of different things, and then the actual process of piecing it together, like like for me, like you know that I have different kinds of visuals and put it all together as cut and paste. And it's interesting that how you are able to revisit particular areas of time, memory, because one of the thing about memories is that it can be altered. Like our brain
Mm.
will alter it to what is, what the mind wants to see, and that's an interesting thing as well. And how like you're able to vividly explain that particular memory and emotion and that you felt within the whole poem itself. And I think that's beautiful. So that's why I was curious, like, did you have like photographs like that evoke or something? So that's why I was just like, oh wow, it's purely up here. So
But
yeah.
then it like I agree with what you said about the when we think of a memory, it is actually not the same memory.
Mm, mm,
Like our
mm.
brain alters it. So what I try best to do is, for example, with that cake, sweetness is a gift.
Yeah.
I received that for my birthday, and immediately I wanted to write down what it felt like, because if I go back now and try to rewrite that experience, it won't be the same.
Correct.
So as soon as something important to me happens, I do try to write down notes or scribble things or scribble the emotions at least of what I felt during that
Right.
time. So at least when I do go back, like your brain doesn't play tricks on you that actually
Yeah.
you felt sad about that, but actually no, it says here that you felt happy, and
Yes. Yes.
so it just helps you to make sure that you're telling the right story.
Right. I
I
mean,
mean,
I
yeah,
do the
yeah.
same. Yeah. It's the same on my end as well. It's like when I see something when I'm on the road, I'd actually write down notes like really quick notes on my phone like, oh, I saw this, and then colors like because I'm like martial arts, so I was like, oh, evening and then gold colors on rooftops. And I was like, I was just because I just went to Jakarta and I was going through back my notes of what I wrote on the road. I'm like, what the hell is this? So then I'm like
Mm,
going through, it's like, okay, and then the colors are the one that helps me remember back on the memories of that. Like sometimes, on the road, you can't take a picture. So I actually write down the colors and the things that I see. So it's just interesting in that sense. Like, I've always found it amazing how people are able to revisit something. So it's nice to know that it's all about, really capturing it in the moment or writing it down somewhere in some place. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, somewhere. So for example, that Venice poem, I wrote that in maybe 20, actually don't remember, it was in one of my notebooks, and then when I saw it
Okay.
I thought, I don't remember writing that, but it's here, and these are this is the emotion I felt at the time. And when I was editing it, it was just a matter of trying to be faithful to what the original piece
Mhm.
was conveying,
Okay.
because I had forgotten that I even wrote it down, or that I had those thoughts and the emotions that were on the
Mhm.
page. But yeah, it's a yeah, it's a there's no actual process to it. It's just sometimes you do it this way, sometimes I do it another way. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that we were going on for hours. Do you think like we will just try and close and for that promote on um I don't know if you want to talk about your zine, how people can get it and stuff like that. And then after that, let's see how.
All right. So for my zine, it's Adventure, and you can find it on SLC Zine Market dot myshopify.com. And also for yours,
Yeah,
it's Lonely Hearts Club under Billy. And then I think it's on the front feature featured page.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
I
and you
think
can
yeah.
also follow us on Instagram.
Yes.
So the Instagram handle, I'll just type it.
Yeah.
25 my IG handle.
All right, now I'll type mine in real quick as well. Oh, my phone. But yes, again, thank you, Diane. It was really awesome, like to really hear about your thought process. And Raphael's back.
He's back. He's back to wrap up. Thank you
Yes.
also, Billy.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining our Zinester Talk here in our community platform and on YouTube. So you can check out Venture, Luna Lonely Hearts Club number one, and well, Vinny's a bite of love, a bite of life, although
Yeah.
sadly he couldn't come, at
Mhm.
slczinemarket.myshopify.com. The links are in the YouTube chat also. And finally, as a last plug, on Saturday is the last day of the mini expo, so we hope you can come and support and hang out with the various publishers at the exhibit booths. We're trying to get a big crowd on Saturday at 5 o'clock p.m. But I think it's 5 o'clock p.m. That's Philippine and Malaysia time. If you're in
Mm.
Jakarta time, that's at 4 o'clock p.m. We're going to try to get a big group, and it's something you don't want to miss because we're gonna have all our little avatars walking around the venue.
Mhm.
Yeah, before we go, let's take a group. Well, that's basically it. So have a good night, everybody. And for the two speakers here, let's just stick around because I'm gonna take a quick
And
break.
Okay.
join Sealet
All right.
Circle.
Thank
Yeah, and join
you.
Cena Circle.
Yes.
These kind of convos happen all the time, every month, for various reasons. It's this and many more. So connecting to a lot of
Thank
people, like-minded
you.
people from the region.
Get to meet a
All
lot
right,
of
let me take a
awesome people.
yeah. Everybody here is nice.
Yes, they don't bite.
They don't bite. Yeah. All right, let's take a group picture, guys.
Okay.
Ready? Okay, one, two, three. All right, let me see. Just do blink check. Okay, I think we're good.
Yay! Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you so much,
everyone.
guys. It was so much fun to listen to.
Thank you. Oh, Billy, what's your favorite food? Just so we end with food.
Yes. I would have to say, it's definitely Italian or Japanese.
Italian or Japanese? Yeah, same. Probably Italian as well.
Yeah, it's something that I would
Pizza.
probably
Yeah,
yeah, it's something that I can eat often without getting too sick about it. I mean the flavors itself, so yeah, Japanese.
Malaysian food. Yes. When I visit
Malaysian
when I
food.
visit Kuala Lumpur.
All of you, please come. I'll feed you guys.
Bye.
All right,
Bye. Thank
thank
you.
you. All right, bye bye.
Night. Bye.